Welcome to a special episode of Issues to Impact, brought to you by the I Have Something to Say podcast team. This is where your hosts, Dr. Xaulanda Simmonds-Emmanuel, Chris Majocha, and Samí Haiman-Marrero serve as a sounding board to tackle recurring issues, provide actionable solutions, and build a supportive community for changemakers that want to make a positive impact on society. By leveraging our collective expertise in business consulting, content creation, leadership development, and marketing, we empower founders, professionals, and leaders to face their challenges by sharing how we have overcome these very same obstacles ourselves. We're not here to just talk. We're here to drive real change by helping leaders address the issues holding them back from making an impact. Together, we can make a difference, tackling one issue at a time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another special episode of I Have Something to Say. It's our Issues to Impact segment here with the lovely Samí Haiman-Marrero and Dr. Xaulanda Simmonds-Emmanuel. And we have a very special guest today, somebody that I met through a local BNI group, Hudson Velocity chapter, little shout out there. But we have John Nadeau on with us, and he runs SpearPoint Digital. Which is basically Google AdWords, Google Ads, everything, Google marketing for businesses, SEO with Google, and loves AI as well, and all the Google developments that are happening with AI.
Yep.
But John is 8 months into his entrepreneurial journey here of running SpearPoint, and mainly working with B2C clients in the small to mid-size range, as you discussed, and kind of your first time doing this and figuring out where to get your customers from and have a continuous pipeline and figure this out. So hopefully we can shed a little bit of insight on here and all learn from each other. But John, welcome to the show, and let us know what SpearPoint's all about and why you're doing this.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I started SpearPoint Digital late last year, late 2023, with the eye of kind of doing my own thing with Google Ads and a little bit of Facebook ads as well, but pretty much all Google Ads, Google Analytics, all the fun platforms that Google puts out for advertisers like myself to play with. So there's really no other reason I started it other than I just love what I do. I've been doing it for a number of years now and worked for a couple of agencies in the greater Boston area. And I just had great experiences at all of them. I mean, they all had their own flavors to them, but I always felt like I could do more because I knew I loved what I do. I just felt like I could do more in the space. So I started SpearPoint Digital, and the name SpearPoint Digital comes from the phrase tip of the spear. I always consider myself, as you mentioned, Chris, very up on the latest trends in AI and marketing technology. And I consider myself a big software geek as well. So whether that's marketing software or otherwise. So I really envision SpearPoint being a very AI forward focused digital marketing company. Because frankly, and I think a lot of my peers in the space would agree with me, if you're not growing and evolving in digital marketing, in the digital marketing space, and obviously this is true for many sectors, you're not going to be able to succeed in the way you would if you did evolve. So, that's a little bit about me. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, thank you for sharing that, John. It's interesting because, sometimes we make assumptions of those digital people like yourself, right?
I've probably heard all of them. Yep.
Yep. Have all these tricks up your sleeves as far as sales and sales funnels and all of that stuff. So it's refreshing to learn that we're not alone, right? As entrepreneurs, you're a young entrepreneur 8 months into this journey, that we all experience some of the similar things, even though we might have a niche or an area of expertise in a particular field. So I know that we're talking about sales funnels and how to really build those pipelines so you have a nice continuous flow of clients. And actually, I was excited to have this conversation because that's one thing that it's either feast or famine as an entrepreneur, right? You get all of these great clients that you're working, and you're focused on the project or focused on what the client needs. And then you forget,
Right.
Oh, wait a minute, I need to be building
Yeah.
The pipeline for when this project is done, and then you're like, oh crap, or
Yeah.
like, oh shit, we're not censored here, right? I not only have to start this business development process again. So share with us a little bit what's that been like for you in this first 8 months of your journey. Are you experiencing
So
some?
yeah, so when I started off, it was kind of just going from what I did know. My first agency was, I was one of 10 to 15 people, maybe just shy of 20 at the biggest. So I really had very intimate interactions in terms of the business processes with both of the co-founders and other members of senior management. So I had some idea of what to do. I mean, I knew it was a lot of networking, obviously. I knew, I mean, I don't think I needed sales to tell me this, but I knew what the website was important. I knew obviously how to market myself from a paid perspective, but being a new entrepreneur, I had no cash flow. So I did not want to go the paid route quite yet. So given that, I did start off with a website. I actually just rebuilt it as of about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But started off with a website, did a little bit of paid ads at the beginning, but didn't really see a return, which and coming from this space, I understand why. I did it for about a couple weeks, but yeah, did some paid, and then really worked my network. I would say the most successful thing I've had so far is working my network, both personally with members of my family who know people or friends who know people, as well as professionally. I joined, obviously, BNI, as Chris mentioned, and it's been great. I mean, there's Chris, probably 15 to 20 members, maybe a little more, and they're all fantastic human beings that not only want the best for you in terms of your business, but also want to just talk and kind of be your friend and give you advice. And I've loved every second of it. I think I joined BNI in February, and it's been fantastic ever since. And I did join another local Hudson-based association called the Hudson Business Association, which obviously is just local businesses that get together to chat about business and all things Hudson. So yeah, but I think to kind of finish off the answer to your question, I realize that that's not quite enough. So I've been trying to visualize a sales funnel, like what happens to the lead when it goes from typing in a form on the website or giving me a call to actual like signing the contract and then putting something into the world. But haven't quite been able to really feed that funnel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally get that. And it's hard to come up with a pattern or that sales cycle until you're in it for a minute, right? You know, because then you start seeing patterns. And I got to tell you, we're in marketing as well, in another realm of marketing, more communications, content development, multimedia production, and storytelling, right? But it's similar, right? Because it's professional services, and oftentimes you're in the same boat as we are, in the sense where oftentimes small business owners who are your target might not see the value immediately of having someone like you, your services be part of their strategy for their growth. And so I can share what's worked for us. And it's just in the last 2-3 years that we figured it out. We've been in business for 16 years. Okay. So the first 10 years was just survival. We were on survival mode because it was right after the recession that we started our business in 2008. But what I can tell you, and Xaulanda can attest to this, is that we've been able to sit back and just look at what our sales cycle is. And for whatever it's worth, right? This is a strategy that we've incorporated, and it's starting to yield results. Okay. And it's basically cast out a wide net. What you're doing right now in being involved in different organizations is fantastic. And so the idea is to break bread, if you can, in person with people. We've found out that meeting with people face to face and having coffee or some kind of a meal, right, breaks down those barriers and makes it a lot more intimate quickly, right? And then follow up, obviously, as you normally would do, or if the entry form comes in, whatever point of contact that you have with these people, with the people or your prospects, clearly follow up on them, figure out what their pain points are, submit a proposal as soon as possible. O sea, never lose momentum on that.
Yep.
And then get a yay or nay, right? As soon as you can, so that way you know what to do, whether to proceed and just get the work done, right?
Yeah.
And impress the hell out of them so they could stay with you, come back for more, and then recommend you.
Mm-hmm.
Or for us, we already know that if between 4 to 6 weeks we haven't closed on the business, then it's time to put a pin on it, right? To put a pin on it and wait for the next quarter to then touch base again. Okay. And then it normally happens. Like today, Xaulanda, that big proposal that we submitted, the meeting, it's a go, the whole thing. Right?
Congratulations.
So, yeah, thank you. I know, but we submitted the proposal, right? And this was a warm lead because they've done business with us before and they love us, right? Mm-hmm. But you know, their end of fiscal is coming up and it was like, okay, something's going on, but we know that they're warm. And so we gently nudged, right? And set up a lunch meeting. And today we broke bread and we got the news, right? That it's all been approved. And anyway, so I'm happier than a pig in shit right now. It's a pretty big proposal for us, right? And so where I'm getting at is that you need to think of the long game, and you need to, and knowing that out of every 100, you're going to land 3, right? If you land 3 out of every 100, you're gold, right? But so then it means you talk to everybody, right? And don't waste your time with people that don't have budgets.
Right.
That's basically it. So that has to be in the initial conversation. That has to come up, right? Yeah. It's like, how ready are you to start implementing, right? And that's it. I mean, people know that you're there for business. And so it's like crafting these meetings in a way that will yield the information you need to know within that 6-week time frame, you know, how long will it be before you get to a yes, or if you're going to need to put a pin on it and then follow up with them, you know, in 3 months.
Got it. Okay. That does make sense. I'm just taking notes as you're talking. Trying to absorb all of this.
John, I guess, so I have some kind of thoughts on ways to approach this as well, but I think a big thing that would help me figure out where and how to market or to get in front of your clients is, what would you say is your biggest pain point right now in terms of communicating to a small business or medium-sized business why they need these services? Because I think, like myself as well, in you know, the like brand and content strategy marketplace where it's staying up on top of the new trends and what the new platforms are and how people are advertising on them and everything like that. And it's oftentimes difficult for me as well to communicate to a small business owner, like a lot of this is just, you know, like, do I even need this? This is, I just run a small business. How do I know, you know, if this is for me? So what is your, or are you finding, you know, any resistance there, or what is kind of is the conversation that's working or not working?
I think that's a good question. I think the why is the issue. I had a good meeting with our colleague Kathleen Chris, and she was saying that you have the what down, but you need to get the why down. And the why is obviously, and I have said this in the past, like, I can grow your business. Like, my goal is to get you leads for a very cost efficient number. But I think based on the reactions that I've seen, I think people need to know more than that. And when I say that, I mean, like, for me, it's like a Google ad. It's like as easy as tying my shoe. Like, I could explain to you how to do it and what it is and why it's beneficial. But I forget because I'm so deep in the weeds. I forget that not everyone is in that same boat. And I think some things can get lost in translation in that sense. And that's not to say, obviously, as you mentioned, like, you're not going to have 100% conversion rate on your your leads, but you might be able to boost that up a little bit if people really understand why they need Google Ads and not anything else, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
No, I totally understand. I'm just going to continue with that real quick, if you don't mind. I think there's an opportunity to leverage your strength of staying on top of these new trends and if you're comfortable doing this, I know not everybody is.
Okay.
Something I know you've been rocking this since you started doing it, but starting to put out your own content about things that are happening, situations. But I think for you, like these latest trends, and you go to the Google conferences and things like that, having content based around that. It just kind of builds that social proof or that authoritative voice where when people go to your page, it's like there's basically two types of content. There's offensive content and defensive content.
Okay.
Where defensive content is what when somebody finds you, what they go to look at to see if you're legit. So basically, once they found you, that's what they're gonna go through your pages. They're gonna go through your website. And they're going to see it, if you have content, if you know what you're talking about, if you have testimonials, etc. Offensive content is getting the people who don't know anything about you to understand for the first time. And I think there's even ways where you can narrow that gap too, where and a lot of this content should be organic and just value-added content. Usually go like an 80-20 rule of value to like your salesy messages. But even on those salesy messages, I think kind of getting closer to the whole with the businesses of saying, like, if your business has a budget of at least X amount, if you're struggling with this problem and whatever another like variable, that are all the things that you can. If they have this budget, they are dealing with this issue, and they want to get results in this amount of time. Let's say, then anybody who is in that position, in that situation, is going to be like, oh, like he's talking to me. And anybody who isn't in that situation or doesn't have that budget or wouldn't necessarily be an ideal customer, it's purposely polarizing, where they're like, oh, well, he wouldn't even talk to me because I don't have X, Y, Z.
Right.
So I think this just could be a helpful way to do it. And then just one other thing, this is like a very guerrilla style tactic.
Okay.
But I've often heard especially if you like can come up with an ideal list of like 100, ideal clients, like the whales, the ones that you are like, if I get 10 of those clients, I'll be good. Create that list, and then I would actually use Google Ads, paid Google Ads, to target directly to them, and maybe even do an advertisement like, hey, if you want to learn how I just got in front of you and like their name so-and-so, give me a call. I use Google Ads to get this message in front of you. I'd love a chance to chat. And if that's like coming up in their search and everything like that, I've heard of people who got jobs that way, where they basically did keywords for a company into the hiring manager. And it was basically like they were putting their resume like on their Google search. Where it's like, hey, so-and-so, I'm trying to get a job with your company. Like, please look at this. And it's like just a guerrilla style way to do it. But
yeah.
But yeah, so kind of like using your strengths, you're staying on top of trends to create content. And then I think creating that messaging that, again, it's just like closer to your niche, where you're purposely polarizing people who are definitely going to be interested, and turning away the people who don't necessarily fit the criteria, because small and medium-sized business, they obviously very much fluctuate in terms of where they are economically, structurally, et cetera. And so if you kind of have like a little bit of an understanding of where you want to, or the lane you want to be in, I think that with that messaging, you can kind of like really narrow in on that.
I love that. And I've been doing, to a certain extent, a little bit of that, but I don't think quite as much. So if you have recommendations on certain types of content, I've been doing, so I have done testimonials. I have a few on my website, and I have a few blogs posted. But those are, I like to write. So those are time consuming, but fun to do. I do like the idea of running the very targeted Google Ads campaign. And I could probably come up with 100 clients I would like to work with, because I can imagine they definitely exist out there. Do you have any recommendations on other types of content to run? Obviously, you guys are doing a podcast, things like that, YouTube videos.
Yeah, or Xaulanda, if you want to jump in here, otherwise I can.
Why don't you wrap up that content conversation?
Cool.
I want to.
I know it's sort of a cliffhanger. Yeah, absolutely. I would say so. There's a couple different kinds of content, and I do this more on like Facebook marketing, sort of where I understand it most. But there's a few layers to it where you have a couple like call it power content. It's reels, and this is a person I learned this from. Her name's Lola Portier. She has an awesome program for marketers, but you have this like content that is very short, 90-second reels that say like, hey, I have this piece of value. You can also have a piece of content that is like free, like a freebie. Say, hey, comment below, and I'll send you this, XYZ, whether it's the top 10 things you need to know for your business in 2024,
Okay.
for Google Trends or what have you, or the things the way AI is going to change your business by 2025. Those like catchy things, and you create those messenger conversations or DM conversations where you can basically start talking to your customer. You say, hey, I want to send you this piece of content. But first, I just want to make sure this is right for you. Tell me a little bit about the situation you're in. And then when they tell you, say, hey, here's this, about your situation. If you have questions after this or want to learn more about what you mentioned in XYZ, would love to have a chance to talk to you. So there's that gets like that value in. Then there's 3 to 5 minute videos, which are like a more expanded version of that, a more educational piece. And then there are the more like direct to sale ones.
Okay.
But there's ways to set that up within, like, so again, with Facebook as an example, where that more generalized value content is meant to just build this like base of like warm leads, and it's just kind of funneling these people into your ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And then with your direct to sale ads, you set those up as retargeting campaigns. So people who have watched, say, 25% or more of a 3 to 5 minute video, or 90% plus of a 90-second reel, are probably interested, or maybe just like couldn't, we're distracted at a time or what have you. But then you hit them with additional content on that back end. That's like, hey, I know you've been watching my content. Like, here's another piece of value. If you're really struggling with this issue, schedule a call with me now. Today, here's a link. And you kind of put out those videos that are more, again, that more salesy stuff, but it's only targeting the people who've already seen your content.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like that. I've heard of that capability in the past where you can target people that have seen certain percentages of content. That's interesting. That makes sense. I like that. Cool.
John, I have to break some news to you. There's no silver bullet.
Yes, that's definitely true.
There's no bullet. It's almost like you gotta kind of take a shotgun approach, right? Mm-hmm. And I totally agree with what Samí said, and I totally agree with what Chris said. Samí's idea of casting a wide net so that you have a lot of potential leads really hits on that awareness aspect of the sales funnel, where people are starting to know what you're able to do. So does Chris's, right? Where you have your website, where you're doing your social media, that's where you're building that awareness. That is very much needed. What I heard you say when we started this conversation was you've been in this for 8 months. You started out very much leveraging your inner circle of family and friends and cash flow, right? I tend to be an introvert, so I do things maybe a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
What I would encourage you to do, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, every strategy you do, measure it.
Okay.
How much time you're investing in a strategy, because the sending out that wide net and having lunches with a lot of people can be a full-time job. Coming up with really eye-catchy, engaging content is another full-time job. That's why Samí's so good at what she does. People hire her to do that. That's why people hire Chris to
Yep.
do what he does, because it can literally be a
Yep.
full-time job. As an entrepreneur, we have to do the awareness. We have to do the engagement. We have to do all of those
Right.
things, right? But fundamentally, this is where my IO hat comes in.
Okay.
Fundamentally, people do business with people they know, like, and
Yep.
trust.
Okay.
Okay? So the people who I focus on in my business are the people who know me,
Okay.
the people who know the level of the work that I'm able to do. And if those people I can convert to be my brand ambassadors who will talk about me in rooms that I'm not in, are the most lucrative and warmest deals that I've been able to
Okay.
get. Okay. When you think about it, when you get a cold call from somebody you don't know, how likely are you to take that call? One of my pet peeves is don't send me those emails saying, hey, Xaulanda, are you interested? And I don't know
Yep.
who you are. Delete, trash, right? But people who know what we can do, the people who know that we're going to deliver a good service, and the people who we can convert to be our brand ambassadors, we sit with them, we have lunch or coffee and say, hey, I'm trying to nail down 3 clients, using this as an example. I'm trying to nail down 3 clients within a month that I can bill at $10,000 each month.
Okay.
Do you know of any clients that I can do? Do you know of anybody that I can talk to that can lead me in that
Okay.
direction? Let them help you make a warm introduction.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Make
Yeah.
sense? Because if Sammy calls me and say, hey, Xaulanda, I met with John, or even Chris called us and say, hey, I met John. He's this really great guy. Let's get on the podcast together. Of course, I'm going to do it because Chris, I know, I like him. I trust him. I know he's not going to waste my time. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Sammy's idea is amazing. That's one strategy. Chris with the content, absolutely valuable as well. But I think when you're an entrepreneur, and Sammy would tell you when she was starting out, she started calling everybody in her Rolodex that she knew that she worked with, that knew that she was going to do great work and was going to be able to have a budget to help pay her for something. Right, Sammy? That's how you started. Right? You're in that space where the quality of your work is going to be a testament from the people who know you and who knows the quality of your work being brand ambassadors for you.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because once you have that awareness and once you have that brand ambassador, you have that interest, you have that warm introduction. Then if it's a good fit, you have that desire, right? Where you sit down with the potential client and say, okay, this is what I can offer. What are your pain points? Because most clients are not going to move if they're comfortable. It's an emotional reaction as much as it is a business reaction. When we're in pain, when you have a toothache, as much as you hate the dentist, where are you going to go? I'm going to make that appointment to go to the freaking dentist because I'm in pain and let me get shit over with, right? That's when you're going to get people to move. And when they can see the value in what you bring, that's when you get the action and you seal the deals.
Got it.
Now, once you build a good base clientele, the easiest client to keep on board or upsell is an existing client, not trying to go out for a new client. So then you hope to spend 20% of your time on those clients that you've already proven and you know them and you understand them and they trust you and they know you, and you upsell them and you're just there available. Because that's an easy sell. You're top of mind when the pain starts to hit. They're like, oh God, I gotta call John because his toothache is bothering me. I'm not getting enough sales, right? So the shotgun approach, from what Sammy said, Chris said, what I'm sharing, is important. And I think you need to look at how much time you invest in each and which ones are yielding you the greatest return. Because every strategy we're sharing here could literally be a full-time job where you're not spending time on your business, which is why you do business, to do what you love. You understand what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yeah. You need to make sure you're getting the ROI out of whatever you're doing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. And so then from a social media standpoint, then it's important though, right? And I'm glad you bring that up, Xaulanda, because it's baby steps. You know, when we first started, we weren't doing any kind, and we're marketers, right? And communicators, and we weren't doing anything, you know, and it wasn't until, you know, Xaulanda sat me down, what was it, like 6 years ago? And
Yeah.
she's like, what do you do to promote Urbander? And I'm like, well, word of mouth, and we get business because of the, and she's like, no, you need to be out there, right? And so what we've learned is never bite more than you can chew. And so what we did was really focus on LinkedIn. And for the last 6 years, LinkedIn has been our playground because it's where we find small businesses, we find big businesses, we find nonprofits. Like we target, you know, medium to large size organizations, government departments, nonprofits, right? And with their internal and external communications. And so I'm happy to share a 13-minute video that I did for another new client. And I'm going to share this testimonial with you, right? So we've become, and I say we, but it's really Urbander and yours truly, like pushing as a subject matter expert in all things communication, right? And advocacy. So that's I think our point of differentiation, that we're also advocates, right? And so we've put out content, we do this podcast, I do blogs, I do posts, and I have this consistency, right? So to really promote. And so slowly but surely, we're being recognized, right? And I'm being recognized, Samí, as a subject matter expert in communication, social media, and in storytelling, right? And multimedia production, which is fantastic. Great. So just in the last week, right before the holidays, right, we landed 2 clients to do some consulting work in social media consulting, right? And it's because of our presence. So it started with LinkedIn. Now, 6 years later, we just started this last year with TikTok and Instagram and more Facebook. You see what I'm saying? So it's just a matter of deciding what playground you're going to play in that's going to yield, right, the eyeballs that you need.
Yeah.
You know, and then the messaging, getting that messaging right. And it's a lot of trial and error. I agree. There's no like one method. You need to do more of what's working and then completely delete what's not. But creating this awareness that you're the go-to guy, right? To or everything that has to do with digital marketing, basically, right? And so there's a way to do that. I'm going to send you the link. It's a short presentation that I did for a new client. And it's pretty evergreen though, right? But the idea is for you to see from there, because there's tips on where to start. Like, how do you start developing content, right? And so there's a series of questions there that once you answer those questions, bam, you're going to have a month worth of content, right? For you to be able to start putting yourself out there. And again, program it in a way that you could say, I don't know, Monday mornings. Just Monday mornings, right? Before I start my week, I'm going to spend an hour and a half and whatever I'm able to birth in that Monday morning, that's what I'm going to put out, and that's it until you get into a groove, right? And then also build up your content and have enough to place for at least 5-6 consecutive weeks. So that way you're not scrambling, right? So, oh my God, what am I going to post, right? And so then like right now even with these podcasts, I'll give you an example. With these podcasts, Chris, thank God, right, knows how to manage all of this. So out of this podcast, we're going to probably yield anywhere from 8 to 12 clips
awesome.
that have captions that we're going to share with you too. So you're going to have content out of it, right?
I love it.
So that way we're all going to benefit from it, right? And share it to our circles. And where I'm getting at is that people are watching. And when you say building relationships, sometimes you don't realize that as time goes by, your network keeps on growing, and people, you might not know them, but then they know you. And then you're walking down the street in Washington, D.C., and someone says, Sammy. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, what? Me? And they're like, oh my God, I recognize you because of the bond. I follow you on LinkedIn. And I'm like, oh my God, did that just happen? And I'm like, come over here, mama. What's your name? Because I'm like in awe. I'm just in awe of them as I ever, you know what I'm saying? And then it becomes this thing where it's like, oh my God, it's working, right?
That's funny.
And
Wow.
so it's great. It really gives you a certain level of credibility of, and also a way to exercise your voice and attract the clients that you really want to work with too, because there's some clients are just like you don't want to, some people it's like hard to deal with.
I've had those.
But if they get you right, well then that's a plus. They know what they're getting into, and it's fantastic. And one last thing that I wanted to share, but because this works too, Chris, and I learned this from you. Always provide value, right? APV, always provide value. And then after 10 value only posts, then come in for the sale. And that last post, did you see the video that I did with Natasha? That shit's like, it's like that's already converted into 3 solid. Like I have meetings this week based on that I posted last week, right? With really, really cool prospects, right? So it's already showing. So thank you, Chris, for that tip a couple of months ago. And so now I'm going to do more of that, right? So anyways, I just wanted to share. And some of these tips are in the video that I'm going to share with you, John, okay?
Awesome. I'm looking forward to watching it. Thank you.
Yeah, totally.
Amazing. Now, I guess a question I had would be, so you talked a little bit about kind of building trust and building value through that trust. And people are much more likely to go to people they know who they are or the quality of what they do. So in terms of using LinkedIn, if you guys have been really successful with that, have you found more success using organic posts versus in-mail? Because I know that can get a little outside your network. Have you seen a difference at all?
Can I jump in?
I was going to say, the LinkedIn gurus over here.
Only use LinkedIn if that's where your potential clients are. The nice thing about LinkedIn and why it's worked for us is you find the decision makers who have budgets on LinkedIn.
Right.
Okay? So what is it that your potential client or your current clients value the most in the services that you provide? And that's what you're sharing. Okay. So really being clear on who your audience is, and that can change over time. I mean, when I first started my business, and Samí and Chris were the same way, we would take any client, right? Right? Learn. Sometimes you take a client and they're more hassle than it's worth, and you're still, eating ramen, even though you're doing steak level work.
Yeah.
Understand what I'm saying? So really trying to figure out who is my ideal client. You have the size, right? But as an entrepreneur, you also want to think about when your sales funnel, am I going to do a net 15? Am I going to do a net 30? Am I going to have them pay a deposit depending on the service before I begin work? You got to also factor in that cash flow side.
Yeah.
Right? In order to keep the business going as you're trying to build the business. Does that make sense? So as you're targeting them, understanding I have a client right now that pays me every week and I'm in love with them. If they asked me to marry them, I would marry them because they pay me every week. You know what I mean? But then you have other clients that you're running them down every week.
Yeah.
And that's
every month and every 6 weeks and then every 2 months. And then you're like, where's my money?
Yeah.
So you have those types of clients are the ones you got to figure out from a cash flow standpoint also what your sales funnel can support and what your business operations can support.
But you set those parameters, right? So I've learned also so in the language of your proposal, right, you set those parameters and it works too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But regarding LinkedIn, the in-mail again, the in-mail is good if there's a 2-degree or 3-degree of separation between you and the person you're talking to. It's better to just ask for a warm introduction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Somebody on LinkedIn. It's good to, I'm not going to call it stalking, but it's good to find the people that you want to speak to and engage with them by commenting on posts that they make, right? And again, this is watching the long game, right? That's why that list that Chris told you to put together of the 100 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even small business owners, they all have LinkedIn page. Everybody has a link. If you're a professional in any sector
Right.
and in business, you have a LinkedIn page, right? So identify those people, figure out, you know, if you know somebody that knows them, right? Figure out what they follow, what they do, and try to engage through their posts, and they'll follow you too, right?
Right.
And then when appropriate, you'll feel it, right? It's all in the vibe, right?
Good
You know,
vibes,
and then
exactly.
you approach them organically. I think organically has been more effective for me.
Okay.
Xaulanda, what do you think?
I agree. I would caution that LinkedIn, all professionals are not on LinkedIn. And that's why it's
Oh, well,
important.
that's true. Yeah, but
It's
Doesn't
important
mean
to
they
know.
shouldn't be.
yes, it doesn't mean they shouldn't be. But you can make a list of 100. You
Yeah.
I
can
think
make
I'm
a list.
on LinkedIn. Don't get me wrong, but in the climate that I'm in, if I really need to get in touch with my potential clients, I have to be on Facebook
Interesting. Okay.
more so
That
than
makes
LinkedIn.
sense.
It's a cultural thing.
That's a cultural
Okay.
thing. Yes.
So then understanding your client, you know, and where they live and play and, you know, is important as well.
Right.
You don't want to be on a platform where they're not there, right? Because you're
Right.
not gonna reach them. So.
And it's like, for example, Latino business owners that are Spanish dominant, you know, a WhatsApp campaign,
Yeah.
you know, and reaching them through, it's like perfect because that's where they hang out. So I'll send you the link. It explains all of this about how to figure out, you need to figure out where these people
Yeah,
hang
exactly.
out.
Yeah.
Right?
Find your
In
audience.
physical spaces, but also online, like everything else, right?
Yeah.
But I'm pretty confident that in LinkedIn you could come up with a list of 100
Agreed.
people, and then it's connecting the dots. It's playing chess, really. It's figuring out how can I reach them, right? And how long, am I gonna court them, right? You need to romance them, right? With your subject matter expertise and your wits and your personality and stuff like that, and just win them over, you know, so they'll engage with you. So that way, when you reach out to them, and it's and in a lot of cases, the bigger the account, the longer, right? The lead time before and that's okay, because once you start landing them and you've got that cash flow coming in, then it's really that first, I want to say 2 years, you know, that are a little bit like, like Chris. Remember when you were starting, Chris? He's like, we need to talk. And I'm like, why? What happened? And the conversation was like, oh my God, the first quarter of the year sucked. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's normal in the first year. And he's like, it is? And I'm like, oh yeah. And he's like, oh my God, good. So it's not me? And I'm like, no, Bobby, it's fine, right? And so then just having these conversations helps a lot, because then he was able to understand, okay, it's not me. I just need to create that pipeline and be ready for next year, because there's always a lull in the first quarter at the beginning of but then once you have these clients that pay retainers or that you get consistent business with, then it's no problem. Like, we haven't had a problem, thank God, in the first quarter of every year, right? For the last 5 years, and let me knock on wood, right? We've been good, right? So yeah.
Interesting.
And I'll just say, kind of wrap a couple things up here. One of the things that really impressed me with you and BNI, and why part of why I invited you on this podcast is you're very open and humble person about who you are and what situation you're in with your business, what you're trying to do, etc. And I think kind of like Xaulanda, was a very poignant thing that you said of all these different tactics are great, but people do business with people who they know, like, and trust. And Samí, you were called out even in New York because of the bun from somebody because you were somebody they saw on LinkedIn. I think one of the biggest misconceptions, especially as small business owners or new entrepreneurs, is you're so focused on marketing your business and you then being like an extension of your business or kind of behind the scenes person, sort of like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, but you need to be kind of the forefront, and your business is an extension of you. And that's kind of how I think even, regardless of the platform that your audience is on, that you discover, through your research and just, as you move forward down this path. And as Xaulanda mentioned too, like your audience can change or your messaging can change, but people will always be attracted to you. And one of the things that I learned from Xaulanda and Samí here is when you are engaging in any business relationship, the three things you need to establish are roles, values, and expectations.
Okay.
And through marketing your personal brand, who you are, what you're interested in, and then kind of like tying it to your business, and through that organic content of saying, you're basically telling people like, this is what I believe in. These are my values. This is the role I can play in your business. These are the results you can expect from me. So the more content we put out, and like Samí, you're seeing the fruits of your labor of putting out this consistent content all the time, is people who are reaching out to you kind of already know who you are. It's almost like a warm lead coming in because they're like, oh, I know you. And I know what you're about and what I'm getting into. So like half the sales pitch is already done,
right?
Because you don't have to introduce yourself and tell them what you're about. So I just think that's one thing to just carry along with you, and understanding what type of content. Again, even you're a very forward-thinking person. Samí, you mentioned the differentiator of Urbander is communication, storytelling, marketing, multicultural marketing, but advocacy is that other tie-in that a lot of marketing companies are engaged in. So, like, John, I mean, there's and you obviously don't have to think about it right now, but are there ways, a differentiator, a value proposition, even just with your personality or what you're interested in, such as AI staying on top of trends? I mean, that was Apple's brand with Steve Jobs.
Right.
It was people bought into the Apple ecosystem not because of the laptop or the new generation of the phone that they already had the previous generation of. It's Apple, especially under Steve Jobs, represented cutting edge technology, the newest of the new, the most techie of the tech stuff out there.
Yeah.
And if you like associated with yourself with that, or believed in that brand, you bought into that regardless of what the product was. So I just think, again, whether it's on LinkedIn, Facebook, even in the BNI groups and everything, you're already doing it in the in-person conversations of being open, being a transparent person. Somebody like, oh, I could sit down and have coffee or drinks with John anytime. But to bring that calmness, that personality online into your and tie that into your business, I think is really gonna be what again, regardless of where technology goes, if you just stick with showing people who you are and what you can do for them, that's going to be your bread and butter.
I love that. And I watched a TED Talk about something just like that a couple weeks ago. I think it was Simon Sinek.
Yep.
He said people. Sorry, say that again.
The why, how, what.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So I completely agree with everything all three of you have said, because people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think Apple is the perfect example of that. So, I love that.
Yeah. And being ready to share what you've got, right? So case studies, what have you. So already I have like several emails that already have like compilations depending on what people need. So that way they're like, could you send me there's nothing like somebody else's story, right? To convince somebody, of why they need you. And that tends to help too. So just, some advice to put some really like quick case studies, like this was the problem these people had, or we benchmarked them, and this was the response rate that we're getting on the minimal stuff that they were doing. And once we did an intervention, right? We did an intervention and we did this with this budget, and the return was XYZ. The good thing with digital marketing is like everything is very, very metrics based, right? So then it's like you literally can do that. And so I think that that would serve you well too, to have them already prepped, and in a format that's sexy. So that way when people see it, they're like, oh, right? Yeah. They're like, oh, I like that, right? Whether it's an infographic, it could be just like an at-a-glance infographic, right? But they're really snazzy and, so just some ideas. Mm-hmm.
Easy bite-sized materials.
Exactly. And then you could repurpose it as posts and content, right? So everything we're talking about can be reformatted, right? And then delivered in different ways, right? So that way you can repurpose the same content in multimedia formats and then wait another 3 weeks and repost it again, but as a blog, right? And then the following week as a video. And then 3 weeks from now as an infographic, right? It's just the same shit, but you're just presenting it in a different format, and it's going to attract, right, people.
It makes sense though. I mean, it gets different eyeballs on what you're doing, so it totally makes sense. Yeah. That's awesome.
So, any other questions that you might want to present us, before we wrap up?
No, I mean, this has been incredible. I mean, I no, I'll probably think of something 5 minutes after I log off, but I could shoot Chris a text. But no, I appreciate all three of your time this afternoon, and I have a full page of notes that I'm looking at right now, and I definitely needed. And still, we'll actively always need guidance on business growth and business creation. So. This has been great. I really appreciate this.
Well, we're here for you, and we know you're going to knock it out of the ballpark. We're really excited to meet you, John.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I want to jump in and just say thank you, John, because not everybody is vulnerable or open about some of the challenges they're having as an entrepreneur. So I'm sure that your story is going to help one or many of the listeners that we have. So in the spirit of increasing the awareness about your business, where can our listeners find out about your business? What's your website? What social media are you on? What are the great ways they can contact you if they need your support?
Sure. Yeah. So my business's website is www.spearpointdigital.net. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, John Nadeau. And yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It was great.
And thank you, John. And I'll just say again, because people do business with people, and warm recommendations. I know John personally. We are in, again, a referral group together. But John is a great guy. Again, somebody who will tell you how it is honestly, openly. Also a brand new homeowner, so he needs some. Let's get him. If you need Google ads, Google business. If Google is so important for your business, especially for brick and mortar, but online as well, keywords and the metrics that you can have with it. And John, you go to all these conferences with AI and everything, so I know he knows the cutting edge stuff. So if you want your business to be prepared for the future, contact John Nadeau.
Perfect.
You're welcome for that little commercial.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
But again, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to our audience for joining us on another episode of Issues to Impact. We started this just a little while ago, and loving this concept. Hope you are too, and we'd love to hear from you, your thoughts, and if you'd like to be a guest on our show. So reach out. And we'd love to hear from you. And thanks again, John. Thanks again.
Perfect.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of Issues to Impact on the I Have Something to Say podcast. I hope you found our discussion today both valuable and inspiring. Remember, at Issues to Impact, we're dedicated to turning challenges into opportunities and supporting you and making a real difference in your community. If you have a challenge you're facing, we invite you to be a guest on our show. Reach out to us and let us be your expert sounding board. Together, we can find solutions and drive meaningful change. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media and join our community of passionate changemakers. Stay connected, stay inspired, and let's continue to make an impact, tackling one issue at a time. Thank you for listening.